Emma sat in the library. She had books on the table. She was studying for her exam. Then her phone rang. It was a number she didn't know. She answered, "Hello?" A voice said, "Is this Emma Chen?" "Yes," she said. "This is City Hospital. Your father is very sick. He is in a coma." Emma froze. For a second she couldn't speak. Then she stood up fast. Her chair fell behind her. She ran out of the library. She didn't take her books. She didn't even take her bag. My heart ran faster than my legs. She got on a bus. Her hands were shaking. Her face was cold. She kept saying, "Please be okay, Dad. Please be okay." When she arrived at the hospital, the lights were too bright. The hallway felt too long. A nurse showed her the room. Her father lay in the bed. He didn't move. Machines beeped around him. "Dad," she said, but he didn't answer. A doctor came in. He wore glasses and looked tired. He said, "Your father had a stroke. He needs surgery, but it costs a lot of money." Emma nodded. She looked at her father. She held his hand. Then she said, "He saved money for this." "I know he did." The doctor looked at her. "You need to speak with the bank," he said. "You don't have much time. One phone call can change everything. I was just a student in the library. Now I am the only one who can save him." The next morning, Emma walked into the bank. Her eyes were red. She hadn't slept. She held her father's bank book. A woman at the desk smiled. "Good morning. How can I help you?" Emma stepped closer. "I need to take money from my father's account." The woman looked surprised. "Is your father with you?" Emma shook her head. "He's in the hospital. He's in a coma. He needs surgery." The woman typed on her computer. Then she looked at Emma. "I'm very sorry," she said, "but we cannot give you the money." Emma frowned. "But it's his money. I'm his daughter." "Yes," the woman said gently, "but the account is under his name. Only he can take it out." Emma raised her voice. "He can't speak. He can't sign anything. He is not awake. The money is there, but I can't touch it." The woman lowered her eyes. "I understand, but we need a power of attorney or a court order." Emma felt her knees go weak. "What do you mean?" "He is dying." "I'm sorry," the woman said. "It's the law. Rules don't cry. People do." Emma sat on the bench outside the bank. She stared at the sky. It was too bright, too quiet. The world looked normal, but her world was breaking. She opened her phone. She called one lawyer, then another, and another. Each one said the same thing. "It takes time. It takes money." Emma had neither. She looked at her father's name on the bank book. It felt so close, but also so far. In that moment, I hated the word no. She thought of the hospital, of the machines, of the time ticking away. She whispered, "What do I do now?" Emma sat in the hospital hallway. Her back hurt. Her eyes burned. She had not eaten. She had not slept. A nurse walked past. Emma looked up. "Can I see the doctor?" she asked. The nurse nodded. Inside the doctor's office, the air felt heavy. The doctor spoke slowly. "We need the money by tomorrow morning." Emma froze. "Tomorrow?" "Yes," the doctor said. "If we wait longer, the surgery may not help. His body is too weak." Emma nodded. Her lips moved, but no sound came. She walked out of the room, step by step. Time doesn't wait, even when your heart is broken. She called a lawyer again. "This is an emergency," she said. The lawyer answered, "I'm sorry. It takes at least 1 week, maybe more." She called her aunt. Her aunt sent $2,000. She called her cousin. He said, "I'm sorry. I can't help." She called 7 people. She had $4,300. She needed $30,000. Her phone battery died. She sat on the hospital floor. People walked by. She didn't see them. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't wipe them. Love is loud, but money speaks louder. The sky outside turned dark. The hallway lights buzzed. She pulled her jacket close. She walked to her father's room. He looked the same, still, quiet, pale. She sat beside him. She took his hand. "Dad," she whispered, "I'm trying. I really am." Her voice cracked. "I called everyone. I even begged a stranger today. I'm not giving up. But I'm scared. I was fighting two things: time and the system." A small sound came from the machine. It beeped once. Emma looked at the screen. Nothing had changed. She put her head on the bed. She closed her eyes. "I will stay here tonight," she said. "I won't leave you." Emma woke up in a chair. Her neck hurt. Her back was stiff. It was morning. The world looked grey. She stood up and looked at her father. He didn't move. Machines beeped around him. She walked out to wash her face. Her phone was dead. She asked a nurse, "Can I charge my phone, please?" The nurse smiled. "Of course." She plugged it in and waited. After a few minutes, the phone lit up. It showed one missed call. The number was new. She called back. A man answered. "Hello, is this Emma?" "Yes," she said. "This is David Chen. I'm a lawyer. Someone paid for your legal fee. I'm calling to help you." Emma blinked. "Wait, what?" "When you feel alone, sometimes the world surprises you. A woman came to my office early this morning," he continued. "She told me your story. She said, 'I don't know her, but I want to help.'" Emma held the phone tightly. "Who was she?" "She didn't give her name, just left the money and your phone number." Emma ran out of the room. She looked around. She had to find the woman. She checked the hospital lobby, then the hallway, then the small kitchen near the nurse's station. A cleaning lady stood there wiping the counter. She had grey hair and soft eyes. Emma walked up slowly. "Excuse me, did you help me?" The woman looked at her. Then she smiled just a little. "You sat near me yesterday. You were crying. I heard everything." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But why?" The woman looked at the window. "My son died last year. He was 25. He had no one to fight for him. I had money, but no one to save." She turned to Emma. "You still have someone, so I gave it to you. Sometimes angels wear uniforms, not wings. When you have nothing, someone's kindness is everything." Emma couldn't speak. She stepped forward and hugged the woman. The woman hugged her back. "The right person hears your pain, even when you don't speak." Emma stood in front of the hospital office. Her hands held new papers. David, the lawyer, stood beside her. "It's done," he said. "The hospital can now take the money. The surgery will begin soon." Emma almost dropped the paper. Tears filled her eyes. She covered her mouth. "Thank you," she whispered. David nodded. "Go see your father. He needs you now." Sometimes help comes just before the door closes. Emma ran to the room. Nurses were already inside. A doctor stood by the bed. He said, "We will start now." "You did good, Emma." She stood beside her father. She touched his hand again. "Dad, I got the money," she said softly. "I didn't give up. I promised you, right?" She watched as they rolled him away. The hallway felt long. Her heart beat loud in her ears. She sat alone again. The wait was the longest of her life. After 4 hours, the doctor came out. He pulled down his mask. "He's alive," he said. "The surgery went well." Emma covered her face. She cried, but this time it was from relief. Some days break you, some days build you, and some days do both. 3 days later, her father opened his eyes. He looked weak, but he smiled. Emma laughed through tears. "You scared me," she said. He tried to speak. His voice was soft. "I knew you'd find a way." Emma held his hand again. This time it was warm. Love can't stop time. but it can hold on until hope arrives. Later that night, Emma walked outside. The air was cool. The sky was full of stars. She thought of the cleaning lady. She would never forget her face, or her kindness. She whispered to the wind, "One day, I'll help someone too." When you are saved by kindness, you carry that light forever. And maybe one day, you become the light for someone else. Emma smiled. The night was dark, but her heart was full of light.